Kathy, are you ready? So this is where we wanted to focus with you first, is this, as we've been talking about, is what keeps you stuck or what it might be in the way. What are the things to learn about yourself that affect your productivity? So one of the things that I wanted to focus on is, first of all, just to keep in mind, you know, the things that you're struggling with, the challenges you have to overcome to actually achieve your productivity targets that we just kind of talked briefly about this morning. So as you keep those in mind, what I want you to focus on is what kind of people do you need around you and who do you want to be? So one of the things that I'm a big believer in is that we are all leaders in our own lives. And either we're leaders with just ourselves if we're self-employed and we have no people that are reporting to us, or we're leaders when we're that and managing people that are working for us or doing things for us or that are kind of reporting to us. So one of the things that I want to ask you to consider is what is it that you would say is the most important one relationship to manage regarding leadership in your life? When you're leading your life and you're working on being productive in your life, what's the most important relationships that you want to manage? With yourself, absolutely. So you want to make sure that you're focused on all the things that it takes. You know, how am I taking the time to work on myself, not just in the world? So there's a list of things that I'm handing out to you around areas that you can focus on for the things that we don't even slow down and talk to ourselves about. Am I managing my health? Am I managing my sleep? Am I managing my exercise? All of those things. You said that you went out into the pasture with your chair and sat and reflected. A lot of times we don't take time to do that because we're so busy just being in reaction mode. So making sure that we're taking good care of ourselves, as Stephen Covey says, make sure that you're taking care of the golden goose that's laying those golden eggs. So let's say you do that really well. You examine it, you reflect on it, you see the implications for productivity. What then, the benefits, by the way, are that you'll be able to set good examples and you'll be able to be somebody that people respect. It's kind of like if you went into a restaurant and people weren't, they had greasy hair and they had stuff all over their uniform and they just look unkempt, you wouldn't feel like you had trust for them because you could see that they haven't been taking good care of themselves. So you'll have more doubt about whether they're going to be able to be productive for you on your behalf. Same with you. When you're able to present yourself as somebody that is managing themselves first and foremost, you become an authority that people respect instead of just an authority figure. Okay? So let's say you're able to do that. You're able to manage the relationship with yourself. What other relationships do you need to be able to manage in your life to be more productive that would actually sap your energy? Anybody? Take a guess.
My boys.
So people that are sort of look up to you.
Not necessarily look up to me,
But that you feel kind of responsible for leading. Okay. Anybody else? In your case, Rhonda, would you say your direct reports? Or would it be something else?
You know, it's funny. I just have this visceral feeling of, I try not to manage them.
Okay.
I try to give them information and then let them kind of manage themselves.
Right, it's not managing the person, it's managing the relationship with that person. What kind of person would you need to manage a relationship with next to become stronger in your productivity?
Whining, complaining people.
Okay, whining and complaining people. Those are all good guesses, but it's actually that you need to manage your relationship with authority, with anybody that you consider your superior. It can be an external authority, like the government. It can be an internal authority, like Sister Mary Joseph from 3rd grade, telling you that you're going to go to hell if you don't do A, B, and C. Okay? When we don't have those issues resolved, we can be in rebellion to the very things that would help us be productive because we're going to be fighting that sense of something is overpowering us. So when we do that, You become an authority and you gain respect and influence because you worked through your own issues. Even you were saying that you feel like people don't take you seriously. Part of it is that you may have issues with authority figures. You may easily be intimidated. You may not have worked through those issues, and so others won't hold you as an authority because of the fact that I have an article I wrote about this called "You're Not the Boss of Me," and it was all the places I had to work through my authority issues so that I could stand in my own authority. Okay? So these are people that have authority over you, and again, it could be people that just are in your head. But managing this takes a lot of your time and energy, even if it's just an internal process. Okay, so let's say you've managed the relationship with yourself effectively, and you've managed the relationship with your authority figures. Who would you say would be the third kind of relationship that you would want to manage? Anybody?
Peers.
Yes, peers, peer relationships. Because if you can't manage the relationships with your peers, you won't be able to get the teamwork you need. You won't be able to get the support you need. Any issues that you have with anyone that is considered a peer will impact the way that you relate to other people that are colleague level. So that's why when I work with families, and I talk about this as being what's the role of a leader in a family, they have to be able to get along with their ex-wives and ex-husbands to be able to be effective in leading. So part of being productive in your life is cleaning up these relationships so that those aren't distracting you, draining your energy, are a source of reactivity for you. So when you manage those relationships, people that you don't get along with that are in your peer group, they can make your life miserable. They can actually sabotage things, and they can actually drain energy. And all of those impacts are parts of what are draining away our capacity and potential to be productive. Okay? So very briefly, I'm just going to show these statistics. Most of you that know me have heard these, but these are just statistics about the levels of engagement and how many people, about 71% of the population are not engaged in their lives. They're not productive as a result of that. Some of them are so unable to work through those authority issues or those issues with peers or their own self-management that they're actually part of the problem, actively part of the problem. These people haven't worked through them either, but they're just kind of hanging out at neutral in terms of their contribution. And these people have worked through those issues with authority, with themselves, and with their peers, and so they're freer to be able to be productive as a result. They have better teamwork, they have more courage, they've mastered a lot of skills. So the reason I kind of wanted to quickly remind you of this particular model, because many of you have seen this, some of you may not have, is that it's important to this next slide that I'm going to talk about around self-awareness. And this is the most important, I believe, the most important thing that you could focus on around your personal awareness of what gets in your way of productivity. And this is called the personal responsibility chart, and it's really a belief system that we operate from. And when we're in what's called this side of the chart, this is any time that we're other directed. And even when I was listening to you guys speak this morning, I heard Marilyn say, I really need to get my office organized. Or sometimes I'll hear, I really should do something. Or I really have to do this to be productive. So those are all clues of when we're over in this side. So let me go ahead and explain to you what this mindset is. This is a mindset where any time we believe there's an authority figure that is functioning in our life that we have to answer to, that takes away our power, when we believe that, what's going to happen is we're going to have reactions to that, and we're going to have attitudes about that. And one of the attitudes, oops, pushed the wrong button. One of the attitudes and reactions we could have is to say, because I have no choice, I really need to do that, so I'm going to resentfully comply. That's the energy that we have when we should, we ought to, and we have to do something. And when we should, ought to, and have to, and we resentfully comply, there's a number of things that we actually don't take full responsibility for. And this has a profound impact on how productive we're going to be. It's to the point of Stevens, is it motivating? Does it create a positive mood in me? Well, our very belief system will deteriorate those things when we think it's about someone else or somebody else's agenda. When I resentfully comply and I don't feel responsible, what I don't feel responsible for are the tasks, because now I don't own them, and I don't feel responsible for my relationships with other people that are involved, and I don't feel responsible for my mood or outcome. And so my behavior actually is reflected as somebody that's very victim-y. Oh, I have to go and do my office. Oh, I really need to do this thing. I should be more organized. Those are things that make us feel and sound like a victim. The other thing we can say is, the heck with this. I don't like doing it, so no, I won't. You can't make me. Even if it's in our own head saying, you really should get that office organized. Well, no, I don't want to. I want to go and do this, and you can't make me do that today. When we do that, again, we're not responsible for the task. We don't feel responsible. We don't feel responsible for the relationships, and we don't feel responsible for our effects. We'll even be so in reaction that we'll cut off our nose to spite our face. So the 71% of the population that's predominantly living from here, and that's why I wanted you to see the connection between that and being a fully engaged human being. The 55% that are resentfully complying are those people that are just, kind of in it at C grade. I'm in it for the paycheck. I am doing it because I have to, and they're not putting forth full effort. And the people that are saying, no, I won't, you can't make me, I'm going to rebel against the authority, I'm not going to be a good team player, I'm going to do sabotage, that's the 16%. So about 71% of the population often is functioning from this mindset. Anytime you're saying, I should, I ought to, I have to, I need to, you're over here in your mind. Now, it doesn't mean that you won't decide to do the thing that you need to do, but if you're doing it from that energy and that thought process, it will not be productive. It'll actually have a negative impact on you and the people around you. So somehow you've got to shift your mindset over here. So I remember just a story about this, to give you an example, is there was a guy that I was dating, and I asked him, why don't you wear a safety belt? And his response was to have this angry voice that immediately popped out and said, I'm not going to let the government control me. And I said, the government's not even in the car with us, But in his mind, it was all about somebody's trying to control me, and no, I won't, you can't make me. He wasn't thinking about the responsibility of what happens if he gets killed because he's just doing it from stubbornness. He wasn't focusing on, the effects he could have. He would be willing to even risk his life possibly to prove nobody can control me, right? A lot of people are living from this and completely unconscious of it. Now, it doesn't mean that he might not have a good reason not to wear a safety belt, but the one he's giving is not a good reason. It's not coming from the wholeness of himself. So you want to know that when you're over here, you want to recognize it so that you can either get in alignment with what you're doing and make it meaningful to yourself so that it's a free choice. Because over here, you actually feel like you're not free. And you're in reaction, so you're not at your best self. You're coming from a negative mindset. So if you were told to do something, and one of your employees was told to do something, Rhonda, and they didn't think they had a choice, and they were resentfully complying, how well are they going to do that task? They're going to do it very mediocre.
It shows.
Right, it shows. And you can feel it, and it has a negative ripple on the whole group. And same within us. And so we're not going to do the job well because the task we don't feel responsible for. Are we feeling responsible for the relationship if somebody's kind of having to nag us? Are we going, gosh, I wonder what I'm doing in this relationship that this person has to nag me? No, we're saying that person's a tyrant, that person's a nag. And so we're feeling victimized. And so this is a big blind spot for a lot of us that affects the level of productivity. So,
Before you move on,
yes.
can you go back to that slide?
Uh-huh.
That 16% on the
Right here.
side right there. In my supervisory experience, I got better over the years at figuring out when I was up against people who were in that place. And usually, once I found that they were in that place, I started thinking about how I was going to replace them.
Mm-hmm.
Is that I'm not that I regret the way I managed it, but because it seems as though getting them to change the way they see things was just almost futile. It was so ingrained in them. They were so convinced that they were in that place. Is there anything that can be done with those folks from an employee standpoint?
There is, I mean, it really is a personal choice. Some people just say, I don't want to invest the time and energy in it, but really a lot of what causes this is the way we've been raised as children and in our education systems and even the way we manage businesses. We don't make it easy for people to not feel that they're disempowered and that they don't have choices. We have, in fact, the next part of what I'm going to be talking about is developing our internal motivation as opposed to the way we do things, which is to try to externally motivate people. And we're even doing it to ourselves. We're going by a set of rules in our head about how we're supposed to show up in life, and it's not necessarily our own choices of how we're going to show up in life. Like, that's the beauty of what Stephen's teaching, is you get to start looking at your unique composition and decide how to operate in it. But most people don't have the opportunity to even explore that. So if you change a culture, I'm a big person on not throwing people away if possible, but some people are very difficult to help move out of this.
For salespeople.
Yeah.
You know, and so if a salesperson is in that category, I just found that, because there's a lot of freedom associated with sales, you know, and so I don't want to take this off task, but it just seems like you don't want a lot of people in that category in your life if you can help.
No, you're right. This is a very destructive, irresponsible person, but this one is something that most people don't pay attention to. Most of us, when we're not productive, are in this, and that's a big percentage of people. Yes?
Judy, will you cover sometime over the next 6 weeks, not now, because I know you have things to do here, well, what happens if an employee shows up, they've got, they're in a good mood, motivated, high values, well-equipped, well-aligned to do what they do, and their boss is an authoritative micromanager?
Mm-hmm.
Will you cover that at some time in the future?
Mm-hmm.
Absolutely.
Absolutely.
As to what you can do,
Well,
what an employee can do, because some people then get into that because
right.
of the environmental impact of that person being extremely difficult and impossible to work with.
Right. Well, you guys are going to have an opportunity to learn this in your own life. If you're aware of when you're here and that it's always destructive to you, then you're going to have quote-unquote bosses who might be your clients that are going to feel very autocratic, very demanding, and you're going to want to go into reaction mode against them and say, well, I have to do this account because I really want the money or whatever. And you're going to know how to be aware of, oh, I'm over here, which is not going to be productive for me, and it's going to have negative impacts. So my daughter, she's very self-directed. She'll come home and she'll go, oh my God, I had this teacher today that it was so hard for my friend to be self-directed. It took me 30 minutes to help her get back into self-directed. Man, your job's hard, Mom. So she, you know, even a kid can be aware of what the dynamic is. What's more important is that you don't produce your own work from this place, because it will always be destructive. And it means something is out of alignment for you. So it doesn't mean you won't come back to making you might be doing an agreement, but not doing it from resentful compliance once you decipher where you are in your mindset. So just to give you a quick metaphor for this, let's say you had a company with 500 people and the payroll was 5 million, and 70% of that organization is operating at that other directed state of mind, and 30% were operating at 100% capacity. What would happen is that's that Gallup information, right? You would lose 35% of your payroll, or $1,750,000. Now, if you take this home to you, when you are not operating at self-directedness, you are losing over a third of your own productivity. So just take that into yourself. So the happy side of this chart is, what does it mean to be self-directed? What is self-directed is when we're in the mindset that we remember that we always have choices. That even if we were a victim in a concentration camp in Auschwitz, we would have choices. It's not about our circumstances. It's kind of like when Rhonda's growing plants. Some plants, you could do the best fertilization and everything, and they're still not going to make it. And some plants, you could put a blacktop concrete over them or whatever, and they'd still find their way through. So this isn't about the circumstances, it's about being in the mindset that help you be productive. So when I know that I have choices, I can have an attitude that's a response, not a reaction. I might look like I'm doing the same thing on the surface, but I'm actually making an agreement and a choice. So for example, when you said, I really need to get organized, you're not yet in the place where you want to get organized, right? And that's okay, that's just information. So start listening to when you say, I really should do this. I really need to do this. I really have to do this. It just means that something's not in alignment. When you're really in alignment, you accept all the consequences of your decision, and it feels like you're responsible for those consequences, both the positive and negative of every choice you're making, because every choice has a positive, negative consequence. And you're actually accountable when you're choosing from a self-directed mindset. You will do what you say you're going to do with the attitude that feels true to you, with the feelings of responsibility, and your behavior will show up that you actually follow through on the things that you say you're going to do. So that's what accountability means. That's why we really can't hold other people accountable, because it's an inside job. No one else can actually hold us accountable. We can even have accountability partners, but they can't help us be accountable unless we utilize them to see where we're out of alignment and how to get into alignment, okay? So the other would be that we could say no to something, but again, we're accepting the consequences and we're responsible for the outcomes and the relationships and all of that. And because we're not in reaction, we have more choices to make. So we can say, you know, I need to do my office, but I'll want to do my office if perhaps I bring someone in to help me. I need to do my office, but what would turn it into a want would be if I did an hour every day on it instead of trying to tackle it all at once. Do you see how you can, the questions you have to ask yourself to stay in this mindset are, what am I feeling and what do I want? If you're not asking those questions, you're just trying to make yourself do stuff, and you're going to be less productive, feel less motivated. You're not going to have the motivation and the mood that you need to be productive in it. So this is really important, and you listening to your own language will help with that,
Judy,
okay?
Where do words like, I hope to do this, soft words that are not really committed, where are they?
Yeah, they're over here too, I hope to. Because it's still about, I haven't chosen to.
Okay.
So I'm sort of it's like the circumstances have more strength than, you know, it's a little bit less than this, but it would be in that neighborhood. Yeah, I've got all of this. So and I even have some questions for you to reflect on around how do I show up when I'm other directed as a victim? How do I show up when I'm other directed as in revenge, and so on? Okay, so what I want to focus on is, because the way we've been raised in schools and homes and in workplaces, we have very weak intrinsic motivation. People have tried to use incentives on us. They've used threats to our well-being, whether it's clients, whether it's, you know, bosses, that have all, and telling us whether we're good or bad and judging us, that have had an impact on losing sight of doing things from the inside out, from that self-directed mindset. So what I want to focus on in the last half of this is intrinsic motivation is that internal set of rewards that we have that help us to find that motivation, cultivate that motivation, and that mood that we need to have to be productive. So the thing that I want you to know is there are 4 intrinsic motivators. Most of us don't know about this because we've been so focused on the extrinsic motivators. If I just throw money at people, if I just tell them this is what I expect of them, or how disappointed I am in them. And that's what we do with ourselves. I'm so disappointed in you. How could you screw that up? You know, we are treating ourselves the way we were taught. So it takes some time to learn how to understand the intrinsic motivators and how to develop those, and even where in our productivity do we get stuck. So the first one has to do with our task purpose. What do I have to manage to have a sense of meaningfulness? The questions around a sense of meaningfulness for anything you're going to do is it worth my time and energy? Is it a valuable mission, or is there a purpose that matters to doing this that makes it worth my time? The next one is the activities themselves. Do I have choice around these activities? Are my activities from freedom? Can I decide from my judgment? Can I choose my activities? What most people do is they just jump in and try to do the job and be competent without doing these other 2 intrinsic motivators. And you can't have that one without doing this one and then this one. It's kind of like a sales cycle. You know, you can't call on prospects if you don't have a funnel. You can't have presentations if you don't, you know, have the prospects. and you can't close the sale if you don't have the presentation. So it's like these build upon each other. So this is more of the why, this is the how, and this is what am I doing? Am I competent at it? And then it's making sure that the purpose is revisited all the way around. If it meant something to do it and I accomplished it, was I successful in achieving that? That's why I'm saying to you guys it's going to be really helpful for you to pick some actual measurable targets so that you can figure out why do they matter to me, and what are my choices around accomplishing them, and what are the skills I need to get there, and when I'm done, have I succeeded in this? And so you have the opportunity to monitor your progress. So I'm just going to go into these a little bit and look at the sense of meaningfulness. The job that you have is to inspire yourself so that you're not cynical about what's going on. The job you have is to clearly identify what gives you passion. Like you were saying, Stephen, what do I enjoy doing? To know that you have an exciting vision for something, and to know that the tasks have relevant purposes, and that there are whole tasks you want to take on so that you feel a sense of accomplishment. So the reason this is important is because we need a sense of meaningfulness. We need a reasonable amount of drama and things to overcome and, ways to save the day, or it doesn't feel like our life has a lot of purpose. We need to be able to overcome difficulties and dangers and succeed. We need purposes that are in service. That's generally, it's one of our goals, our needs is to be contributors. And we need to have something that we can feel proud of, a heroic myth or journey. So I'm going to hand out right now some of the information that I have for you guys, because I want you to turn to the section that has, oops, I think that's just one thing. No, there's this. Now, if you could turn to the one that has 4 boxes in it. Okay. And by the way, I gave you a blank sheet of the personal responsibility chart because I think it's so important to remember what all that's about, that you take some time to maybe even make copies of that blank responsibility chart and practice filling it in until you can remember it and what's important to know about it. So when you look at the sense of meaning, the reason that's important is if you don't have a sense of meaning for what you're doing, your life or your project or your work will become empty, meaningless, and you'll feel alienated from it. And there will be that sense of angst and anxiety. So the work will leave you depleted, and to survive, you're going to numb out instead of actually enjoy. So if you guys can look at that first box around sense of meaningfulness, do you see the questions you would need to ask yourself if that's where you're stuck in your productivity? Because on different days, we're stuck in different ways. It might be that we're cynical about thinking we can actually do what we're set to do. Like right now, I'm building a whole new training center, and it's an online training center, and there's times where I can get really scared that, what if I can't do it? What if I'm thinking I'm better than I am? Or I'll get cynical about it. So I'll have to work on how do I overcome that cynicism? What are the things that I can do that I know that I can start feeling the meaning? Why is this project important? Oh, I can impact so many more people, for example. So those are questions. If you feel that you're stuck in your productivity around a sense of meaningfulness, this is the place you want to focus your energy on. I remember a guy said to me one time that his employee said, "Why do I have to do this job? It's so boring and it's just, so tedious." And he said, "Do you realize that because of you doing this job, 850 people were able to get new homes last year?" And this is where it was so critical to the process. And he showed her the meaningfulness of it, and she said, "Well, it's still boring, but I feel a lot better doing it now." So that's often what we're not aware of, that we're stuck in. Okay, the next one is our sense of choice. Do I have choice over my activities? If you're a leader, you want to hand off more choices to people. For yourselves, you want to hand off more choices to either other people or yourself, so that you're choosing what you want to be doing and what you don't want to be doing. A lot of times this is having more trust in yourself or having more trust in delegating to other people. It might be that you get to try new things and not worry or judge yourself if you try something and you fail at it. I just heard a quote the other day that it says the best thing to do is the right thing. The second best thing to do the wrong thing is to do the wrong thing right now. Because you want to be willing to make a choice and not make it wrong if you fail at it, so that it's an opportunity to learn something new. Having a clear purpose for what you're doing. Simple example, when my kids were growing up, we gave them as many opportunities to have choice over how they were going to do things. So we would give them the whole budget for the grocery store, and they'd go to the store with the money, and we taught them, about the things they had to buy, like toilet paper and so on. But they had that experience of feeling like they had choice in what they were going to pick out and how they were going to spend that money, and it gave them a sense of motivation. It gave them a sense of excitement and an internal purpose, okay? So you might want to look at those questions. What information do I need to know about I was just talking to somebody the other day where their workplace is such that they don't have anything other than the outcomes that they have to achieve. They can do them at whatever time of the day they want, however many hours they want to work. It's called a results-oriented workplace. And that's where they have lots of choice. So maybe in your life you're not giving yourself choice. You're thinking, I have to do it a certain way because everybody else is doing it that way. And you're locked in, and it keeps you from being creative of another way. The reason we need a sense of choice is because we need to be able to see that our choices matter, and what our preferences are matter, our temperament and how we like to do things matter. We want to feel that we're a contributor. We want to be treated as adults and given opportunities to make decisions, and sometimes we don't treat ourselves as an adult, as though we have options. We want to be curious and take risks and try innovative ways of doing things. And it helps us to be proactive, creative, and gain a strong sense of ownership. If we don't have any choice around how we're going to do something, we feel like it owns us. So if we don't have a sense of choice, it feels like something's according to someone else's agenda. And again, if you're just a single owner, but you're still operating by what you think the rules out there are, you're not going to feel that you have choices. And so you're going to feel that your own initiative, your own ideas, your own ways of doing things aren't important, and that you're not a very powerful person, and you feel like you're impotent, instead of really standing in, this is who I am, and this is the way I want to do it, and it's okay. Then once you've accomplished those two, the sense of competence is just making sure that you feel effective in what you're doing. And what you need when you're in this state is you might need the coaching of others, or you might need to coach yourself by making it a priority to get the knowledge you need, the positive feedback that you need, the skill recognition that you need, the challenge is appropriately set, that you're not comparing yourself with others, that you are able to really become masterful at something. And the reason this is important is because if you're not feeling masterful, you won't feel like you're performing your activities well and that you're meeting the standards that you've set for yourself. So don't ignore that. A lot of times this is the starting place that people jump in, but it isn't necessarily the place to start. But when it is, you want to make sure that you address the things that you need, that you have the right amount of challenge, so that you're in that zone of good mood, that zone of motivated. You want to be able to master skills, show that you enjoy that competency. If you don't feel competent, you'll feel too much challenge, which would discourage you, and you might give up, stop caring, or focus on how embarrassing it is, or dissatisfied, or anxious, or overwhelmed you are. So you'll end up with too little challenge and you'll get bored. That's another thing that can happen if you don't feel competent. You won't take enough risks that your job can become dull. Okay? And then the last motivator is one that surprisingly a lot of people forget to do, and that is making sure that you take time to celebrate your progress. That you're in an environment where people want you to share your progress, and that it is used to inspire others. That you will track your milestones along the way. So as you guys set your targets, you want to look for where you're making some progress so that you can kind of cheer yourself on. Wow, I set it up that I want to get my office organized in 6 weeks, and I've already taken a filing cabinet and cleaned it out, so that's a way that you can celebrate that progress. You want to have access to people that want to witness that and want to celebrate it with you and support you in it. You want to measure your improvement, and you want to make sure that you create times to celebrate when you have achieved something. Like I loved it that at the meeting yesterday, Bill, that you brought in a lot of things to celebrate, because we forget how far we've come otherwise. The reason people need a sense of progress is that without it, well, first of all, with it, we need to know that we've actually moved toward the meaningful purpose. We need to know that our hard work is paying off. We need to celebrate that sense of, yes, we did it. And if we don't do that, what happens is we become frustrated and we just feel like we're just constantly doing, and not taking time to be with that sense of joy that we did it for in the first place. So we lose our task purpose. And then, in effect, we'll often burn out. And we'll say, gosh, I got all this stuff done, but I never stopped to enjoy it, so it just feels like I've been on this treadmill. Does anybody have any questions about any of this?
Which of those four have you found in organizations and in coaching is the, like the biggest block or the biggest aha experience for people?
I think most people undervalue the importance of sense of meaningfulness. So they're all about skills training, and they're not aware of the fact that people want to have a say in things, and that people aren't feeling like they understand the relevance of what they're doing, the why for what they're doing, the way that they want to be doing it that's aligned with their values. And all those things play to motivation and mood.
Yeah, that's the brain engaging with what's in it for me.
Right, and the heart. What's in it? What do I want to do for others too? Both, yeah. So those are all internal motivators. And the way that it looks is that, this slide is just to say that if you're the leader in your life or the leader of others, your job is to help inspire them to find those reasons for committing to their purpose. If you're leading others and they don't feel like they have enough choice, it's handing things off to people so that they feel that sense of, I have a say-so. Bill, you did that great yesterday even with me when I came in and said, is it okay if I do this? And you're like, hey, you're in charge of that. I gave you that whole task. That helps me feel that I have choice, and it helps me feel motivated to be part of. Competence is the leader. You just want to make sure that you're checking in with people or yourself about, do I need skills? So in those boxes that I gave you, I had those questions more directed toward yourself, but they can equally be directed toward people that you work with. And then in the sense of progress, your job is to keep track of your successes. Most of us are keeping great track of our failures or our inadequacies, but we're not tracking where we've actually made progress. So it's just commit to a meaningful purpose, choose the activities to accomplish that purpose. So we're going to be talking next week about your what, by, when, and how to actually start building strategies to achieve things. And then you perform those activities, and then you monitor how well you're doing and that you've made progress. So that's pretty much all I have. I hope I haven't gone over time, Kathy, have I? So that's the information that I've provided you. Gives you some sort of worksheets and some things to remember around how those are about your awareness of yourself and your management of, beginning of the management of yourself. Okay?
Thank you.
You're welcome. The clicker's right there. Oh.
Anybody needs to take a quick break and finish up here?
Okay, I still see. Okay, this is yours, I guess.
I didn't put mine in yet.
Oh. Hope it didn't hurt then. I always forget to do that part. Is this top one? What? How come it says it's been deleted? Do you want to plug it into your computer?
Yeah.
Okay.